Waluigi Stadium immediately enticed players upon Mario Kart Double Dash's release. It's just fast-paced fun. It's full of ramps and boost panels to keep the race going quickly. Not to mention going up and down multiple hills and having to dodge piranha plants and fireballs. It's a dirt bike track in Mario Kart form. How could you not like it? That's what speedrunners thought when Mario Kart Double Dash first released in 2003. Well, they ended up getting into one of the toughest, most technical, and most skillful tracks in the whole game. This is the world record history of Waluigi Stadium. Now, before we get into the history, there's two things we need to go over. For one, in the first few weeks of the game's release, a shortcut was discovered on this track where you go off of this slope and get enough air to hit the respawn zone for a later point in the track, saving about 2 seconds per lap. Although this shortcut is faster, it's considered a glitch and isn't counted for the main leaderboards. Shortcut runs do have their own leaderboards, but they're not as popular and don't have as interesting of a history, so this video will be exclusively about runs in the non-shortcut category. Additionally, Mario Kart Double Dash time trials are divided into 2 subcategories: 3-lap, where you complete the entire course as fast as possible, and fastest lap, or flap, where you complete 1 lap as fast as possible. Both will be discussed in this video, but we'll be mainly focusing on the 3-lap history. In Japan, Mario Kart Double Dash released a week earlier than anywhere else in the world, so Japanese players had a considerable head start. This was especially true on Waluigi Stadium, where Japanese players set 5 of the first 6 records on the 3-lap and held the record for the entirety of 2003. The only exception was Dutch runner Mario Bart, who held it in November before getting beat again just 3 days later. However, when 2004 rolled around, that would change. Cesar Barton would claim the first record of the year on January 2nd, lasting a week before fellow Frenchman Scan set 4 straight improvements on the record, dropping it by nearly a second and a half. The last of these improvements only lasted a day before Mario Kart legend Alex Penev took the record down by 0.3. Cesar took it down by 0.4 a few days later, just for Penev to beat it back by nearly 0.5. In the first 5 weeks of 2004, the record was lowered 8 times. It'd be lowered 10 more times during the year, but record activity was dormant here for a minute. Penev's record was set on February 6th, and it wouldn't go down until April 25th. That's when Scan finally took it down by just a few milliseconds. However, the next record would be a massive cut. Swedish player Carlson took it down by nearly 2/3 of a second. Scan and Carlson swapped records here one more time, then Moritz would take the record down by over 0.5 with back-to-back runs. 4 more players set records: Stefan van Dijk, Jonathan Steele, Marius Mollenhauer, and Vincent Vanderfloot. Vanderfloot, aka 2100, set the last record of the year on December 28th. He's the first name worth paying close attention to in this video. You see, Dutch people have always had a weird knack for Mario Kart Double Dash, but this is especially true on Waluigi Stadium. Dutch players both have more records set and more time holding the record than any other country. 7 Dutch players have held the record for the 3-lap, but 3 specific Dutch players have been particularly dominant on this track. I've nicknamed these 3 the Dominant Dutchies, and Vincent is the first of these 3. His 139.729 was his first record here, and it did last over 2 months. Another Dutchie, Cohen Mensink, got back-to-back records in March of 2005. Jonathan still cut this record down by 0.7 in May, and this is the last big cut we'd see for a while on this track. The next record would be by 2100, who took a couple frames off of Steele's record. This is the first 3-lap record with surviving video, and gives us a look into the strategies runners were using at the time. Let's take a look, shall we? Before the run even starts, we can see that Vincent is using the barrel train. Lightweight karts are very good in this game. They have the longest mini turbo boost, getting 30 frames of speed boost instead of 20 or 10. The barrel train was used in pretty much every time trial in the game at this point, as it was not only a lightweight kart, but also the fastest kart in terms of base speed, and could take turns tightly and didn't bounce as much as other karts. In Mario Kart Double Dash time trials, runners get 2 mushrooms, which can be used to get a quick speed boost and potentially take shortcuts. Runners quickly found the fastest 2 mushroom spots on this track, skipping these hills after the first turn and through a patch of mud after the first ramp. However, where the second mushroom is used, this wall to the side isn't off-road, meaning you can precisely drive up it to avoid the loss in speed. Therefore, the first of the 2 mushroom spots was used in 3-lap runs. Vincent used his 2 mushrooms on lap 1 and lap 2. You see, there's a section in the middle of the track where there's 2 obstacles you have to avoid: spinning fireball wheels and piranha plants that go in and out of pipes. The piranha plants are the more consequential of the 2. If you're driving and the piranha plant is all the way out of the pipe, you'll have to take a wide line to go around it, losing valuable time in the process. Runners had to tinker around with different shroom strats to find out which piranha cycle was the best, and ultimately went with using the mushrooms on lap 1 and 2. From there, the track is pretty simple. There's a brief hilly section, followed by 2 hairpin turns. After that, you just go off the ramp and round the course 2 more times. This is pretty much what all top runners did at the time, and it would stay this way for quite some time. 2100 wouldn't play this track for a while, but when he came back to the track in February of 2006, He'd take the record down twice in one day, getting the first 138.6 and the first 138.5 on February 9th. He did find one new strategy here, which he did in these runs. At the beginning of the lap, there's a little hill that runners go over. Vincent found that by going to the left side, you could reduce your airtime and have less speed loss. The lap 1 starting angle made it tough to pull this strategy off, so it was only done on laps 2 and 3. It was a pretty minor time save, but still a useful one and definitely helped him improve the record. No one was rivaling Vincent on this track until September of 2006. On the first day of the month, German runner Hendrik Bund set his first record on the track, lowering Vincent's record by nearly a quarter of a second with a time of 138.290. A rivalry on this track was officially underway, and it ended up lasting for over a year. Vincent and Hendrik would swap records one more time. Vincent got a 138.018 at the end of 2006, and in March 2007, Hendrik would break the 138 barrier, getting a time of 137.960. But a few weeks later, the record would be beaten again, and this time it wasn't by 2100 or Hendrik Bund. You see, on April 2nd, a Mario Kart Double Dash speedrunner would set a time of 138.535. A great time for sure, being ranked number 4 worldwide, but still a good bit off the record. But what happened next shocked everyone. Just 12 minutes after he posted his 138.5, he posted another improvement, and this time it was a 137.866, a new world record. This is Marinus. Marinus had scored his first record not just on Waluigi Stadium, but in Mario Kart Double Dash as a whole. Sure, it could have been a fluke, and it was only one record, but now someone else was contending with Hendrik and Vincent for the record. It'd be a good minute until Marinus would set another record, though. In August of 2007, Vincent would set back-to-back records, both in the 137.7 range. This wouldn't last long, because Hendrik would set a record of his own on September 15th, cutting about 0.1 and getting the first ever 137.6. But in January 2008, Waluigi Stadium was about to change forever. Another top-level Dutch runner, Aaron Langerak, made a forum post saying that he had found a new strategy that could save a lot of time on Waluigi Stadium. He shared his supposed new strategy with Marinus, and the two of them got to improving their respective times, with both of them aiming for the track's 3-lap and flap records. Marinus said that he was going to get the world record and would share a video when he did, so the community held their breath and waited. Well, a few days later, Marinus was able to claim the flap record, and a few days after that, on January 11th, he improved Hendrik's 3-lap record, and this run had a video. The community watched the video in unison and were completely shocked. There actually wasn't any new strategy. There were 4 of them. Firstly, remember how runners didn't go to the left side of the hill on lap 1? Well, Marinus bucked that trend by doing it in his runs. A minor time save, sure, but a time save nonetheless. This was the least noteworthy of any of the new strategies, though. Next, you'll see him go against the trend again by not using his mushroom at the normal 3-lap mushroom spot. Rather, he uses it at the flap shroom spot. Sure, he could have taken the wall ride 3 times, but it's hard to do it quickly that many times in one run. Plus, even if you did the first shroom spot, you'd still spend some time in the mud anyway, so it's not like it saved that much time. There is one more reason he used the mushroom where he did, though. This. You see, normally in this game, if you go off of a boost panel into the air, you'll trudge through the air pretty slowly and lose speed as a result. Therefore, if it's possible, you'll always want to go around ramps, but Marinus was the first to do it on these ramps on Waluigi Stadium. On the first ramp, he hits a couple boost panels, then drifts off to the left side in order to skip the boost panels that'll slow him down. This launches him much further forward and gives him a great angle into the shroom. This strategy is hard as you have to squeeze between 2 fireballs, which are difficult to judge exactly what position they'll be in depending on your phase. However, if you can hit it, it'll be a pretty considerable time save. Marinus only did it once in this run. If he had done it on lap 2 as well, it would have saved even more time. Runners couldn't do it on lap 3 because it didn't give an optimal angle for the wall ride, but there was still a chance for a noticeable time save on 2 laps. There's also another ramp trick you can do, and this one comes in at the ramp at the end of the lap. This one saves about the same amount of time, but it's much easier and can be done all 3 laps, so it's much more worthwhile. As a result, Marinus did this one 3 for 3. These 2 strategies could combine for quite the hefty time save, but Marinus hadn't even cut 0.1 off of Hendrik's record yet, so he kept going. In under a week, Marinus had lowered the record by a full second. His skill on the track, combined with all the new strategies, had allowed him to completely crush the previous record holders here. Marinus would come back 7 months later to score one more record improvement, taking the record down to a .465 in September 2008. This record had been significantly lowered thanks to Marinus' new strategies, but someone was going to solidify the record. You see, in 2009, a player had joined the Mario Kart Double Dash leaderboards. He was already roughly a top 50 player in the world, so pretty good. But by the end of the year, he had already set multiple world records. And in January of 2010, he set the fastest lap record on Waluigi Stadium. This is Quidare. Once Quidare became an elite level player, he already had a bit of a head start on the Waluigi Stadium record. He didn't have to pioneer any new strategies. He could get the record from his skill alone. That would be further proven when he took the fast lap record on January 19th of 2010, beating Marinus by a few milliseconds. He had clearly established himself as one of the best Waluigi Stadium players in the world and was continuously improving his 3-lap time. At this point, it wasn't a matter of if he'd get the 3-lap world record, it was a matter of when. Well, in April that year, he finally pulled it off. 136.357, a solid .1 cut on Marinus' record, but that wasn't good enough for Quidare. You see, there's something you have to understand about Quidare. When he set world records in Mario Kart Double Dash, he usually didn't just beat them. More often than not, he would destroy them. He would cut tenths off of records like it was nothing, setting numerous milestones in the process. A week after his first world record on Waluigi Stadium 3-lap, he improved his lap record. It was a 41 millisecond cut, maybe a small cut for Quidare standards. But to everyone else, this was massive. So massive, in fact, that this record would go on to last 2,654 days, or over 7 years. He had dominated the fast lap. Now, it was time to do the same on the 3-lap. And in August 2010, he did it. He beat his Waluigi Stadium 3-lap record. He got the cut he wanted. 1:35.964. Unfortunately, this run doesn't have video. All we know is that I had a clean wall ride and no major mistakes. But either way, for now, it was over. Waluigi Stadium was over. No one had expected this time to go into the 135s, or at least not this soon, but Quidare had done it. Waluigi Stadium had seen its magnum opus. For now. This run would go on to be the 5th longest lasting record in the game's history, lasting just short of 7 years. But this means someone had to have beaten it, right? Well, someone did beat it. 10 times. In August 2015, someone joined the Mario Kart Double Dash leaderboards. He started off at rank 244, not bad by any means, but nothing to write home about. But he slowly but surely started climbing up the rankings, getting higher and higher. And then he got really good, setting multiple records and climbing all the way up to the #1 spot on the leaderboard. He was the world champion of Mario Kart Double Dash and seemed capable of outracing any player on any track. And on August 5th, 2017, he beat Quidare's ages-old Waluigi Stadium lap record. Finally, someone who could contend with Quidare on the 3-lap. This is Goomba. Around the time he got the flap record, Goomba was also grinding the 3-lap, but the 3-lap was much harder. It was 3 times as many opportunities for mistakes, so Goomba was failing a lot of runs. But he was persisting and still scoring improvements on the track. On August 9th, he improved his time to a 136.045. On the 12th, he dropped another 5 milliseconds. And on the 14th, he improved his time to a 135.986. He was now the second person ever to break the 136 barrier in just a couple frames from the record. It could happen at any time. His best splits were more than enough. He just had to get 3 good laps. Well, on August 15th, he had a run going. His lap 1 was 31.852, nearly a tenth of a second faster than in his .986. Then, his lap 2 was a 31.352, which was also about a tenth faster than his .986. He could smash his best time on this run, and the world record as well, with a good lap 3. But all he was focused on at this point was getting the world record. To beat Quidare's record, he needed a lap 3 of at least 32.759.
Yes! Oh my god, I did the clutch.
He had done it. By 1 millisecond, he had officially dethroned Quidair on Waluigi Stadium. But Goomba knew this was an improvable run. His best ever lap summed up to be nearly 0.6 faster. Sure, this time would require him to drive at his absolute peak for over a minute straight, but this just showed that there was still much, much more room for improvement. However, it'd be a while before the record was improved again, and when it was, it'd be a 0.2 cut, but it wasn't Goomba to do it this time. Another runner had crossed the 136 barrier and beaten the record. This is Optimistic Emo. Optimistic Emo, while not the number 1 player in the world at this point, was still number 2, meaning he was one of the best in the game and was still capable of setting impressive runs and scoring world records. And when he got his first Waluigi Stadium record, it was nearly a 0.3 cut on his PR and a 0.2 cut on the record. Goomba and Emo had already had a bit of a rivalry brewing throughout the years, but now we were about to see one of the greatest track rivalries in Mario Kart Double Dash history. These two runners had single-handedly dropped the time from a 135.9 to a 135.2. No major new strategies, just great, consistent driving. After getting his .288, Goomba would end up quitting the game for a while. He had some hand issues that made it extremely difficult to effectively crank out all the mini-turbos needed to drive at a world record level. But not much longer after, Emo also quit the game, so Emo's 135.226 remained dormant at the top of the leaderboard. But in September 2021, Goomba returned to non-shortcut time trials. It'd be a few months before he gave Waluigi Stadium a good try. But when he finally started grinding the track again in May of 2022, he had one goal in mind. He was going to be the first to get a 134 on Waluigi Stadium. On May 31st, he reclaimed his record, barely clutching it out with a 135.211. Then, a few days later, he improved it to a .146. Could he actually pull it off? Well, on June 7th, he got on a really good run. He started off with a 31.561, one of the best first laps in Waluigi Stadium history. And then he got a 31.184, another extremely strong lap. He just needed a 32.254 lap 3 to get the sub. And considering his previous record ended in a lap 3 of 32.165, this was more than possible for him. But then, on lap 3, disaster struck. You may have seen runners constantly crank out these mini-turbos in the previous runs. These are the main method of moving quickly in this game. Every time you charge a mini-turbo up to the blue spark, you get a speed boost. In order to get good at MK2D, you have to master these mini-turbos. And in order to be one of the best players in the world, you have to do these extremely quickly and consistently. So fast that you don't even have time to think about each mini-turbo. It's just using muscle memory to do all your inputs and praying you don't mess up or the game doesn't register your input for whatever reason. Well, that's exactly what had happened here. Dropping a mini-turbo costs around 0.1, meaning it's certainly not optimal, but definitely not a run killer either. So the run was still alive. He recovered well and was going to reach the finish line. He had come so close, yet so far. There's no way of knowing for sure whether this run would have been the sub 135 if not for the dropped mini-turbo, but it certainly didn't help. All he could do now is just keep grinding. And the next day, he got on another really good run. He started off with a 31.511, an even better opening lap than his .093. Lap 2 was going great too, but on the ending ramp trick, he actually missed the boost panels. Surprisingly, this doesn't lose that much time, only .1 at the most, so it was still a really strong lap, 31.227. Now, all he needed was a 32.261 lap 3, and he had the 134.
Yes! Oh my god! Yes!
And that's where the record stands today. Currently, only 4 runners have even gone under a 136. Huidere's run is still the 4th fastest run on the leaderboard over 14 years later. To this day, no one has pushed this track like Emo and Goomba did. With both of them now seemingly officially retired, and with no active runners within even a second of Goomba's record, seems like it'll take a long time for this record to be beaten. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for watching.